Well, I will say, let's start. So I call the meeting to order. It's 6 o'clock, Cassie.
6:01.
6:01. So I call the meeting to order. There's no public comment, so we can skip by that. I just want to let everybody know that, this is a busy night in town hall. A lot of meetings going on, and there'll be a meeting in here at 7 o'clock, so that is kind of our limit. The meeting will run. I want to, do one little bit of kind of housekeeping, so, I'm happy to continue as chair, however, I'm not going to be able to attend the main meeting. And I think it's probably a good idea to have someone that kind of can sit in for me if need be, that would willing to serve as vice chair. But if anybody interested in serving as that, I would not think it would take a lot of your time, but you may have to chair a meeting or two or help with anything or something. So if someone is interested, let me know. We could vote on it at our next meeting. I will be at the. I'm looking at anybody in particular. I'm not sure. And I wanted to also, introduce folks, start with John.
Yes.
So as you remember, Christine Zellick attended a meeting, and Lyme is, probably facing a lot of the same issues. A lot of us facing, we share roads, obviously we share 126 and so forth. And, maybe you could just, tell us, what you do in town, John, and, what Lyme's plans are.
Okay. Well, thank you for including me, public safety director and fire chief in the town. When Matt Weather was trooper, Matt and I worked together with, looking at, we actually did a collaborative of buying the same speed signs so that we had better buying power and Matt can monitor them the same way. So the newer traffic logic signs that are here in town, we have the same. We have, some of them came from a grant. 2 we purchased ourselves. What we're looking at is the same probably concerns, speeding, which is probably number 1. We don't have the benefit of a resident trooper. So on town roads, I'm the only traffic authority, so it's kind of limited what we can do. Most of what we're looking at is probably targeted enforcement with state police and then trying to move the signs around. The data does support that they work extremely well. I've improved that. So just so you know that if you put a sign up and you put it into stealth on this revealing something, you can collect data without it being obvious that it's on. And then you turn the sign on, it shows the delta between how quickly it causes people to slow down. It's 10 to 15 miles per hour. So it's significant, particularly in the school zone. So
I'm sorry, when you say when there's an active flashing sign showing the speed, people comply more than when it's still collecting data, but the lights aren't on.
correct. And there's other ways to collect the data without the sign being up. But I think that from all the research that's been done, they are effective. And they can collect a lot of data. I know that several signs we've received and also Old Line received are through a grant that UConn is paying for the monitoring because they're doing an overall traffic study for the state. And it's several things. So the only other thing I was going to share is that there's some ones where you can do the signage, so I've done a lot of testing with little thank you and a thumbs up. Some of those positive reinforcements actually do make a difference. Believe it or not, people like it, they comment on it. If you go down Line got the fire station, that one's programmed pretty well for if you're exceeding the speed limit quite a bit. Delta goes red. You bring it down, it says thank you. If you actually go the speed limit, it gives you a thumbs up. I know it's silly, but we're a society that likes those little things, and it is effective. So whatever I can share, I mean, we obviously work closely together. The idea is whatever we learn, we share with you and vice versa. So
Before you leave, John, if you have a card, if you give me an email address, I can share some of the committee stuff with you. I think it's interesting. And our other guest this evening, and I thank him for taking time from his schedule, is Trooper First Class McGregor. He's our new resident trooper in town. And I'll let him introduce himself. If you can just tell us a little bit at this point about what your experience with the state police has been, and then we'll go around the room and we'll let you know who we are.
Almost 13 years. I started in Colchester, then Montville,
And then the past 5 years, in major crime, with the central district, covering the whole middle of the state. Then I landed here about a month ago, per se.
Hmm.
So I'm learning everything and trying to sort everything out. And meeting 1,000 people a day and trying to do the best I can and figure this out here. Essentially.
So I had a chat with Derek a while ago. One of the reasons I came on this committee is I had some experience in traffic safety. I worked as a civilian with the state police department in the public information office for a number of years. I probably wrote and I got the department about 25 different grants for traffic safety. I had to update myself. A lot of that was trying 55 programs and so on. And I did have some uh, practical experience in trying to reach out to the public. So that's why I volunteered for the committee.
Ken Sweeney, I'm actually Assistant Chief of the Oakland Fire Department. Figured I have a little bit of insight on the fire side. Also, like I said before, I work for one for public works, so I understand like the whole roads and signage and that.
Rosemary Padovano, resident of Old Lyme, and I live on Sill Lane. And this committee was formed shortly after a car hit our house. And
Sure.
that was our house. You were there.
How's that?
In my pajamas. You may not recognize me. I was a little upset. Yeah, Martha put the committee together after that and started just a great conversation about public safety in town, and so happy to be a part.
I'm Bradley. I'm new to the committee, so I'm learning as well. I was born and raised in Old Lyme. I live here again now on Binney Road, which is off of 156, which is one of the state road, but it's one of our topics of conversation. Yeah, I utilize alternate forms of transportation a lot, so I'm hoping to explore ways in which we can make those folks safer.
I'm Sophie. I live on McCurdy and obviously deal with a lot of the speeding that goes on there. As I walk my tiny little dog who doesn't like the grass.
I'm Mary Devers. I've lived in town for 50 years. My kids were raised here in most of the old schools, and I live on Ferry Road down by the DEP, and that's a busy road where people don't stop at the stop sign. And someone ran over my dog that will stop at the stop sign, and my father broke his wrist jumping out of the way of a speeding car. So a little vested interest in speeding on Ferry Road.
I'm Andrea. I live on the corner of Smith Neck and 156. Another hit spot several times.
Your garage.
My garage, the fence, when we put in the house itself before we bought it. And when we put in a fence, the people at town hall at the time said, "Oh, now you won't see the next car coming through your window." It's like, that's comforting. There's a berm up on the corner. I know you're familiar with it. You will become familiar with it. Hopefully not. But, it's also a matter of the crosswalk is also an issue, and apparently there was to be a crosswalk, automated lighting system put in the fall that may still be on the docket coming up for some time, but it's obviously a state road in a very crazy intersection with Mile Creek.
My name's Danielle. I live off of 4 Mile River Road, and I'm a cyclist and a runner, and just would love to see those kinds of ways to move around our town done safely.
So in essence, we're folks that live in town that are concerned about safety in town and willing to try to do our bit to help make the town safer and yeah, my personal point of view is the safety of the town is the principal responsibility of this in town. And we'd like to do whatever we can to support you. make your life as easy as possible and hopefully work with you as a partner there. One of the things we're gonna talk about this evening, I don't know if you'll, what your schedule is to be able to take for some of the meeting is, we've been talking to a lot of the towns that have, either applied for, have been approved or are actually operating, camera safety enforcement. And pretty much in every town we've talked to, the police have been a really integral part of that process in both, putting the application together, and then overseeing it. One of the things that DOT asks for is it's a pretty rigorous application. You have to justify why you want to do it and in particular, you have to justify why you think camera enforcement is needed at a particular location. And most of the towns have relied on the police department to kind of pick out where they think is a dangerous location, where they've had accidents, where they believe people are speeding and so forth. And I know that you're new to town, and I'm not gonna put you in a spot to ask you for some locations, but maybe one thing you could do, I think would help the committee and would also help you and your officers is maybe just start conversations with the various officers and say, you know, where do we have problems in town with people speeding? Do we have problems with people running lights? If so, what are the locations and so forth? And that. Can you tell me a little bit about, or share with the committee a little bit about what your staffing is, Derek? And I think the town is also looking to hire an additional officer too, is that correct?
Right, we got 4 full-time right now, one's in the academy, graduating March 18th. And we're looking to hire another one. The application process just closed February 1. So I'm in the process of going through applications and working towards interviews.
But the recruit that's in the academy, you see it before, he'll be 5, or he or she be 5.
It'll be the 5th,
Okay.
and then we're going for the 6th after that.
Yeah, you're in
I'm curious, John, in your town, do you just rely on state police patrols going through the town?
We do, we can do targeted enforcement, which we've done when we have real problems, so we'll hire the state police to do that type of patrol. I have called to the constable, so I've limited powers, but I can do enforcement on town roads, but that's very controversial in most towns, because generally when you do that, you're capturing your own residents. So, and we found the same thing when we've done targeted traffic enforcement with state police, mainly the people who we caught our residents, and they get very upset. So it's always hard to manage because everyone admits the problem, but quite a lot of people are contributing to the problem. So.
One of the things I wanted to ask, I've been asking Martha about this, but I'm really happy that we have both of you here today is we've been kind of going around in a circle about getting data from the warning devices. Can you tell us where we're at with that? Are you training an officer in line with that, or?
Now, Derek is here, I'm more than happy to train him. I work also with Officer Solari. Because when we put the signs here in town, I help them up and running and did the initial reports for Martha. And I think it's pretty important for law enforcement to be able to access that information. It's just so everyone knows, it's pretty comprehensive nowadays. There's lots of ways to analyze the data. You can look at your average speed during the time of the day. You can, what's very helpful is to see, particularly in a problematic road, what are your pain points? So normally it's going to be the time when people are commuting to work or coming back. So that if you have to do enforcement, you can say, take resources and say, we're going to put them at this intersection at this time when it's really a problem. It's at some point, if you like, and I would defer to Derek, I can come in and show you the level of all the signs that we have, including the ones through the grants, and you also receive them, are cloud-based. So it's a service, but if you can pull data remotely, you can change the messaging. So for a school, if they have a special event, signs are very, very sophisticated nowadays. Not all of them can do messaging. The smaller ones with the white display do messaging. The bigger ones with just the larger numbers that the state provided us, only do collecting data. But I'd be happy to show, I've done the reports and created a template for full line police that shows that they can use for presentations. You might have seen some of that where it had full line PD logo and
Yeah.
it shows some stats.
I haven't seen anything recent, John.
Okay.
Martha's told me she was negotiating with you because obviously you're not from town, but you're doing work for the town, so I understand the.
I'm happy to do it. So
Yeah.
there's people stop and say, why are you in our town? Doing the signs. I'm happy to do it, but there's liability. So now we have a new, resident, something I would defer to him as to whether I support or I train people. I'm happy to do it, but it is time consuming.
So would that be your decision, Joker, to have, say, officers salary or be trained and kind of share that and compile their information?
Yeah, I think we have to get our own access to the cloud, our own account to access our signs, to collect all that data, and then I'll work with John on training one of the guys or myself or one of us to figure out the data and compile all that information and where to locate the signs, how to fix them to the, I think they're on breakaway poles,
You have to be on breakaway rules.
which is not, so you have to install these big stop sign poles and go all the locations, therefore when you move it, location to location, poles already gotta be in place. There's a little, some moving part here, but
The bolts, right?
the pole, yeah, the pole stationary, you can't just pull the pole out. So
Right, but the unit is mobile, so it can be moved around.
You can move it. They're designed to actually purchase, both towns purchase the brackets, so that allows you to move them. You have to remember you're also moving the photovoltaic panel that charges them. The panels are so good nowadays that you don't have to, if you put them in the right location, they will forever operate there. There's actually the chart will show you how much sunlight, whether or not it's sufficient to keep them going. They're impressive. You can also, law enforcement can roll up to them if they have an MDT mobile computer in their vehicle like I have. You can communicate with them with Bluetooth. So if you choose not to do the cloud, which has a service, officer can still roll up and pull the data and program them if you sit right next to the sign.
One of the things I've talked to Martha about is, I guess, did you create or build trailers to make them a little bit more mobile?
So, I inherited the first sign we had in our town, which was a Decatur. It was on a hand truck. It was really a hassle to move. So I built the first trailer that we have. If you're on Bill Hill, that one, Lars made the mount, made the trailer I built myself. I have a budget this year for a sign. The goal was, when Matt Weber was here, was to create a joint venture collaborative and basically share assets. So, the trailer would be something that we could, it's a lot easier when they're on a trailer, because if you're putting a speed sign on a state road, you have to request an easement. It's not that difficult, but you have to go online, Connecticut DOT, request an easement, have the town put in breakaway signpost, and then install it. So there's a lot, whereas a trailer, you can move it around more readily. And, I think you have to.
We'll get into that in more detail. So I talked to Weathersfield's town manager, and I talked to Chief Costa from Middletown, and they both said it was as much of a headache to get the state to let them put a post in the ground as it was to get their ATS approved.
Right. And the other advantage, we've had a lot of snow this year,
Yep.
obviously, so the PV panels will get covered in snow and then signs stop working. If they're on a trailer, you're gonna have a major storm, so they don't get plowed, and it's nice to pull, you can put them into a public works garage or whatever.
Well, that's the other issue. Weathersfield is approved and have everything and ready to go, but they're waiting for the ground to thaw what they're posting.
To go along with the breakaway signs, I mean, basically it's two posts that ends up going to the ground. You got one's about 28 inches.
And
And then the other side that you see the signpost, that have to bolt to it. So like, it's not like as simple, like, oh, let's just move this one post. Because now you got about an 8-inch piece of post sticking out of the ground that you have to remove loss from. So like, I think the trailer is definitely much more universal for our town. Because, it's not like you're looking to do a few different spots. So if you just do it at one spot.
Hi, this is road safety. Are you water pollution
Yeah.
control? That's gonna be an American Nation room down the.
Okay,
up
thank
there
you.
Down.
Sorry
Yeah.
about it.
It's at 6:30, I think.
Yes.
So yeah, I think we can do the trailer side of it. I think it makes more sense the work effort that you actually have to put and then you know, find rock, you're gonna all great things. You know, so now it's simple, just one post, you're good, you actually got to hold two posts together.
Can I ask a question? If you have the regular posts in the ground in multiple locations, how easy is it to just switch the signs between them every couple of months? You still have to go through, if it's on like a state road?
Good news, but once the post is in place, and of course chief would know, you know, then you don't have to move it. The only concern is if you take the actual upper post off, it's a hazard. The short piece that sticks out of the ground, that's the breakaway. The way the signs work, which is really useful, is that when you deploy them, they have mapping software. So you drop a pin, you can put the latitude, longitude, save that spot. So what happens is if let's say Bill Hill, I have that marked, I keep it there for 2 months. Then I move it, I have another pin drop, but if I decide to come back, I can have that data still there from the last time I deployed it. And then you can also make a comparison. So you always want, each location, you always want to mark it and keep it, because also for a committee or for law enforcement, if they want to go back and say, when we had it on Bill Hill, can you pull the data from 2024? Do we see a change? So in our town, the biggest impact would be the fact that the bridge was being repaired up in Haddon. So we had a massive amount of traffic going through our town, and a lot of people going through areas that would normally not get traffic.
So, I hope that we can work together and we can perhaps work together so we can see how we get that data flowing. And I would love to sit down with you or talk to you, John, about interpreting data, because you mentioned to Martha that you need to look at it. So I want to make sure if we're drawing conclusions from it, they're the correct assumptions.
Agreed. Thank you.
So one of the issues, so backing up again, the various things we're looking at, Derek, are speed camera enforcement. And that could include red light enforcement. We haven't really gone into that yet. In terms of the pedestrian and bicycle safety, because a lot of the infrastructure improvements can be really expensive. Old Line has a lot of roads with really narrow shoulders. So we're thinking about maybe going to the school system, starting with them, and then maybe doing some kind of community outreach. And Larry has volunteered to do with the superintendent. And are you interested in joining with her, Bradley?
Sure.
That would be first. Michael Fox, who is a member who was not here tonight, was going to also do some research talking to the beach communities about speed humps. We got one road, Brighton Road, which leads down to the old beach club, where basically all the residents on that road came to the committee and filed a resolution saying we'd love to have you put summer speed humps in here because people are just going too fast. And the roadway is actually fairly narrow, and somebody's parked on the road, it can be a bit of a danger. And we're also looking into something that was in this Martha, our traffic calming approaches in Rosemary. We'll talk a little bit about that. But one of the things we did after the last meeting was reach out to some of the police departments, and each of us had talked to a police department and share with all of us really a brief little synopsis of what we learned. And I'll go first, just as kind of a template. So we know what to kind of address, and also for a time frame, because again, we're somewhat limited in our time. So I spoke to Chief Eric Costa of Middletown. I don't know if you know him. He used to be the CO at Trucuff. And they've had really what I would call a spectacular program. I would say that their program it's been a great model for all the other communities. So, hi, down the hall.
And the ball to the right, to the right.
Thank you.
They have the main camera on Route 66, which is a state road. And the location where the camera is has a tremendous traffic volume. They were getting 180,000 cars a week each direction on that roadway. And the chief cost, the speed was just out of control. And one of the things they were asked, and I think it's pretty much everybody asked is, you know, why did you have an officer there? Costa said, to have somebody there 24/7 like a camera would just be prohibitive cost. You know, and it takes the department away from other areas that need attention and control and so forth. So they took in $1 million in fines in the first few months with this speed camera. And now that people are aware the camera is there, they've had a 94% reduction in speed. And they're using that money as towns are required, it can't be used for the general fund. They're using money for a lot of infrastructure improvements, which will also help safety. And the police department itself is going to buy warning devices built in with trailers so they can move them around. And the other thing Chief Costa is doing is going to train officers in spotting and dealing with distracted drivers, you know, of all types. They are using a company called DACRA. We found them to be really interesting. They help the city with their application. The police department flagged the locations they thought were a problem. And then DACRA went and did some of the engineering studies that DOT needs. So you need to do reviews the location. You need to do different outlines of the location and so forth. Middletown had because of the volume of enforcement, they had 11,000 appeals at first. They had 4 attorneys and 2 officers working on them. It's dropped down to about 700 a month, which is still fairly high, but they're writing a lot of things. Weathersfield, I thought was interesting because they are part of the Capital Region Council of Government. CRCOG went and certified 3 different vendors, but they wanted to talk to all the people that submitted bids. And they ended up going with a company that wasn't on the list because they're the only town I know so forth that is doing 3 types of camera enforcement. They're doing speed, they're doing red light, and they're doing noise. And they chose a company called Sightstream because apparently they're having issues and complaints with people riding either on or exiting or entering the Berlin Turnpike with mufflers that cause a lot of noise. And they were kind of set for that. They went to DOT and told DOT, this is what we're going to do. And DOT says, you have to come for us to say no, because we get a law passed that addresses that. And this sent you my notes on that. They again had to go to DOT to put the 3 locations they're going to start with are all on state highways, and they're using red lights on 2 17 Highway Route 99 locations. They're having the red light cameras in all 4 directions. DOT would not approve the speed cameras on 2 local roads, only on the state road. They're going to have 2 cameras on a post. They're going to have it calibrated, so they're going to give people a little bit of a lead, so they're not going to catch people going through yellow light, and they're going to give people a slight little tick before they start them going through the red light. And Tom Manners said, I hope we're not going to have many appeals. He says it's got to be pretty black and white. You either are going over the speed limit, or you went through a red light, or you didn't. They're going to see how the town hearing officer handles going hearings and handle that. And I talked also to Chief Kevin Glenn from East Line. East Line is going through the process of applying now. They're using alternate who met with this committee. No, they're taking a little interesting approach. They're going to ask for approval of 10 locations, and they're going to bounce the cameras around from location to location so people aren't expecting them at one particular spot. And they are definitely going to try to get camera, at least one or two cameras approved on Route 1, which he said is one of the primary problem areas in the town. There was a lot of concern about privacy when they went before the town meeting, before they got the ordinance passed. And a lot of it had to do with the use of license plate readers and flock cameras, and people confused what the town is looking to institute with those type of cameras, and they made sure that people knew they were not different. It was just for all of you, there's this story I think I may have shared where even some out of state departments are pulling data from those cameras. And that was a concern by the people in town. The other thing to do is Chief Glenn was pretty explicit that he's going to start, at least anyway, what you call it, a grace speed of maybe around 15 miles an hour over the speed limit. You have to give people at least 10 miles an hour. He's going to go even over that so people get used to that. And the other thing that he and Wellsfield are doing, I thought was interesting. You have to give motorists notice that you're doing this and do a public campaign and sign and so forth. But they both contact all the companies that have GPS app, so it'll pop up your car approaching a speed camera. So, Mary, would you like your comments?
I did, two different towns. One was Washington, Connecticut, and they installed cameras in May of 2025. And since then, they issued 14,000 citations, $703,000, of which they collected $528,000. And they used a collection agency, which they were very happy with. And they said that agency was able to get a fee of 25% of the collected fees. But what they said is they're doing what they call sort of a soft approach. The collection agency would write a letter first, right? And then follow up with a phone call. But after that, they said they didn't want to be nags, right? So that was still a pretty good, right? 28 out of 703. So they were pleased with that. And they also said they used what they call more user-friendly citations. And the citation explained that, you know, this would not affect your insurance. It wouldn't be points on your license. It wouldn't go to the DMV, and all of the information would be destroyed within 30 days. So they thought if people could understand that, they wouldn't be, you know, big brothers watching me, kind of a fear. And then just like you said, Greg, they could use the revenue for certain things, right? They can't use it for anything that they want, but they could use it for road maintenance, road safety, and he said it really helped, and also for staff, who needed staff to look at the tickets and stuff. But he said it freed up his other budgets to do other things because he could use it for road safety. They said the first cameras they put in were so successful that the speeding dropped so much that they moved the cameras to somewhere else. So I think what everyone is saying is the cameras work, the tickets work, and they're sort of training people to obey the rules. And they both said they were very happy with DACRA, and they were also extremely happy with the GFD. They said they were very, very easy to work with. Okay, that was Washington, and then I spoke to the gentleman at Beacon Falls, and Jerry Smith, and their home was the same position as Oline. And he said he was a selectman. They received lots of complaints about feeding, so they did the preliminary test, right? And they were able to do this, demonstrate with alarming statistics, the extent of speeding on the town roads. They said they clocked 13,000 drivers going over the speed limit of 40, 10,000 going 51 to 60, and 33,000 going 61 to 70. So they have the data they need to, you know, to say that we really need this. They said the town meeting to approve it was not well attended, but people did not seem to object, so they were able to forward. And they worked with DACRA, which they were also helpful. They had their state trooper did all the vetting of the vendors before they chose DACRA. So they just went live on January 26th. So they don't really have a whole lot of data first, but they said they've already issued $2,500 in tickets since January. That was just 2 weeks ago. And the objections are the ones we hear all the time. They said, oh, the town is trying to collect money. And they explained that's not what it's about. It's not the money that's collected has to have road safety and traffic safety issues. So that seems fine to them. Let's see. And the privacy concerns that we've all talked about were a concern, but they pointed out that the data is destroyed. And just like other towns, they said, oh, why can't you have your local police do it? And they said, well, that's prohibited. You can't have a cop working, around the clock in those places. And he also noted that, and we know this, that New Haven has fully embraced the speed enforcement. I haven't been there lately, but someone who was said, oh my God, there's humps and bumps and lights all over the place in New Haven. And then he also noted that Kent voted no. A couple of people told me that the town Kent voted no. But anyhow, they're very pleased with what's happening and, they're new to it, so we'll see.
Great to hear. So,
Yeah, so I spoke to the town manager of Marlborough. And they went with DACRA and they were very pleased with DACRA with the help in getting the system up and running. They've been less pleased with DACRA in keeping the system running. They've had some issues. They're not willing to say that they wouldn't recommend DACRA. They're basically trying to renegotiate their contract. So that, and yeah, they had reductions in speeding and made money. I spoke to the chief of police in Milford. Their program is not actually up and running yet because they have the same issue of frozen ground. They went with Ultimate. They're happy, but they still have to do like their PR campaign to inform the public. And not for right now, but since everyone has sort of talked about Big Brother and privacy concerns, I did do a sort of prepared state, because I didn't want to just off the cuff say my piece on that. So I wrote it all out because I do think that a lot of people, when you talk about privacy concerns, say, well, there is a difference between automatic license plate readers and the automatic traffic safety enforcement devices that we're looking into. And so I did research on that subject, which I'm happy to share with you all after.
I wanted to, I thought it was interesting, at one point I noted is that I think it was DACRA that was getting paid even though it was in the field.
They're trying to, this is in Marlboro, and they're trying to renegotiate this contract because DACRA gets its $15 for every violation, regardless of whether or not a fine is collected for that traffic violation. And that would be a problem in and of itself, but they're having a lot of issues with the quality of the image being produced, not being good enough to move forward with a citation or a traffic violation. And DACRA still gets its $15 and the town can't do anything. And the $15 seems to be coming from the town. Like they have not done what most of the other towns that we have looked into have done, where the money is just coming from the fines and then money is going to the vendor. It seems as though Marlboro is paying DACRA.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's something I think if O-line goes forward or line goes forward, it really needs to be negotiated and discussed with any vendor. I don't, the law allows the $15 administrative processing fee, but there's no appeal. I don't really see why the company should collect that money. It's interesting, and there's a two-part process in Weathersfield where SiteStream will hear an initial appeal and basically talk to the people virtually. If they can't agree that, yes, I admit I was going too fast, whatever, then it goes to the appeal where they have an actual formal appeal where they have a hearing officer. But interesting, Weathersfield, I got to mention this, Weathersfield is going to give people a little bit of grace if there's circumstances that warrant it. For example, if someone said, my wife is hurt or my husband's having a heart attack, I was taken to the hospital. They said, we're not gonna find people with that. So that's obviously a subjective call, but that's how the town is approaching it, which I think is fair. So, Andrea.
I spoke with Greenwich and Stanford. I spoke with James Smith, who's the sergeant of the Greenwich Police. And their program it's fully live January 8th, so their data is a little newer. They went with Blue Line Solutions. They like how they took a holistic approach, not just focus on revenue, was more in line with the town values. And they, the vendor helped complete the application along with the traffic engineer and with people in town hall and police. They have, I think it was this one that had, the, this, appeals, they have, it takes a lot of, it takes everybody, it's a laborious process. In January, they had 5,000, citations, which was low because of, school break, but it's a very tedious process for the, police to go through the citations and to, check the description, check the plate of the vehicle, the description of the vendor to the violation, and approve or disapprove whether it was an actual violation. And that was kind of a learning curve for them, not realizing that it was gonna take so much manpower. And some people, they were just stupefied about their comments, like people would write, they're still getting some complaints, even though it's been very effective, because there have been noticeably slower speeds, but, people, either, PTO people will ask, well, what's the speed limit? So that kind of gives them pause. It's like, really? Really? And not even aware that there's a school zone. So that's few people, but it's just still kind of shocking response. I think they have 10 cameras, 10 roads, and 6 schools that are cited. And the Blue Line Solution helped them with all the media education beforehand. And Stanford, they have a transportation planner, so he prepared the entire application. That's his job. Of course, these are much larger towns or cities, to us. So they use some state data, crash analysis, school walking data, speed monitors that recorded speed. And he would recommend strongly having the vendor help for compiling the application. And they're using SiteStream. They had a competitive RFP bid with 500 vendors, not at liberty to say. 3 were interviewed, and it's a full service. So that just kicked off also early January. So they don't have, that was approved January 7th. So they haven't really been on the ground much to give data.
Thank you.
I apologize, I have fire department meeting tonight, as chief knows, so I need to excuse myself, but I'll grab the card before I leave.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Good seeing you. Thank you.
You're.
Down the stairs,
Yeah.
up the stairs to your right.
Okay. Do you know if police departments have worked with some of these vendors like Ultimate or DACRA and others?
I'm not sure of vendor names. I know my brother's a chief in Rhode Island. And he just went through this whole process with, the Rhode Island state laws, you can put the cameras actually within a quarter mile of the school zone. That was quite nice, but they're moving out of that to go anywhere they want. Like he told me, that's all I know, when he told me, is vendors require 3 necessities. It requires municipal ordinances for speed and these violations, which don't have this right now. Municipal court and a municipal court judge. And what they do is they have a traffic court, but they'll hire a judge who, I think he goes to their town hall, presides over the People want to fight the ticket, the appeal process, and talked to him the other day, he said they have to schedule a secondary day of court, because at first there's thousands of violations coming in and everyone's gonna fight those 100%. And so they've had multiple days and it's a the whole thing, but I guess he said you need those three things for a vendor to actually commit to whoever it may be.
Like, the reason I asked this is Chief Costa and Chief Glenn both said they had worked with the companies that their towns chose, previously worked with the companies and familiar with that. And I can't think of his name, but I know that Ultimate has, I believe, the retired chief from Branford on their staff, working with. And he obviously maybe known by other people, law enforcement community. The other thing I wanted to mention is that it's really, there's a limited number of towns that have resident troopers that are going through this process. You mentioned through Beacon. Well, yeah, and Washington, you had the two resident trooper towns that have been approved. Durham is voting on an ordinance, I think next week. And Killingly is talking to Ultimate about a program, kind of, they're in the same very early part of the decision process that we're in, so. So just to kind of sum up, as I said, I think that rightly looks to you to maintain safety on the road. We can like to help you however we can. But I also think in terms of the decision of this committee, it's my own personal opinion. And I can't speak for everybody else in the committee, but I would consider what your thoughts are on speed. Really would have great bearing on how I would be used to what recommendations to make the board. It would be, in my point of view, if you were on board with the program, it would be much easier. So for me personally, to proceed with that, so. We work together on that. I don't think it's easy. And just in terms of the process going, we've talked to different people. One of the things I want to do in the next month is try to get some work with the Connecticut crash depository data and try to find out some of the accident experience in this town and the injuries in this town and zero in where they're going to be located. Next month, Rob Harriman, who's a traffic planner for Rivercog, is going to come and talk about the old line portion of their plan. Towns that apply for a speed enforcement program must have a safety plan in place. Pretty much every town I've talked to seems to be using their COG plan rather than coming with their own plan, except for something like New Haven, which. But you're right. I drove in New Haven the other day and I just blew my mind how many speed humps they have. And I talked to an engineer in New Haven and they were paying something like $10,000 for speed humps. They got a giant grant, I believe, to help defray some of those costs.
I'm curious to learn, what response or reactions the ambulance, police and
First responders.
first responders have to those.
They're fairly elongated. You can go over them maybe 25 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour without much jolt in your car. You're going faster than that, I imagine you're gonna know you need to slow down. So before I want to let Rosemary have a chance to talk about traffic calming. There are something called. So just as a preface to that, one of the things that was noted to us in our survey is that a lot of people mentioned that they thought there were some safety problems. The parents either dropping off students or picking up students at the end of the school day at Mile Creek School. And Martha suggested maybe traffic calming would be something to look at.
So I just started to compile and I'll pass around some copies. Just visuals of what all these different solutions look like, because I know we've been throwing around a lot. Yeah. And so I just thought, I went through, the DOT website, that Robert had sent you, Greg, which is a great resource, and on page 2, it's definitely worth some time looking at that. It's the Federal Highway Administration, calming primer. So it's a whole guideline that goes through different solutions and, how they're applicable and research and data on, how those all work. So, I basically just studied through those and kind of imagined what would be applicable for Old Lyme. A lot of them are for more urban settings and just a sense for what we're dealing with. So most importantly is the, basically the importance of the traffic calming solutions are that, if you're driving, and you're at a speed of 20 miles per hour or less than if a pedestrian is struck, then typically they're not permanently injured. And so anything, over 36 miles per hour, really results in a fatality. So the whole goal of traffic calming is just to reduce fatalities in different ways. So,
Hi, Carrie, we have it to 7. We'll be out.
First, the painted crosswalks are something that, I know Martha was, pretty jazzed about, that solution for Old Lyme. So I did some research about that. This was not on the DOT's, recommended website. And I think I read through some newspaper articles and, a few different towns, and, they're very mixed reviews about what kind of solution this is. Not necessarily, like, it was good in fostering community and bringing people together on a shared project, but in terms of safety, it was sort of mixed of whether that was more distracting or, some of these are like, is that a crosswalk? I don't know. So, I think it could, there's basically no data that supports that it's helpful in any way except for raising morale now. Then I wanted to just go through the bumps, the humps, and the speed tables, and I'll go through that kind of quickly. The speed humps are 12 feet in length and between 2 and 4 inches in height. It's a speed hump. And then a bump is much shorter, between 1 and 2 feet in length, and can be as much as 6 inches high. So basically the recommendation is that those, that the bumps are in a very, like a residential area. They're not on, a road that's traversed very much, or a parking lot or something like that. So just in terms of, your concern, obviously, for first responders, that would just not be appropriate for the areas that we've indicated, except maybe, right. Yeah. Then the speed humps, those, are just basically much longer, because we all know. And we're very, in terms of the data, we're very effective in slowing the speed down. The speed tables are basically what we see in New Haven. So those are much longer, and as you were saying, like basically, if you go 20 miles per hour, 25 miles per hour, there's no damage to the vehicle just because of the way that they're pitched. But if you're going over that, you're really jostling. The speed cushion, which is sort of what I landed on as my favorite. It's what, we had been talking about, Sophie, you had mentioned this a few times, that they have these, basically the cutouts in the center where emergency vehicles and trucks and buses can pass through without having any damage to the vehicle. And very much like the speed table, the profile is such that when you traverse over it at 20-25 miles per hour, you're going to be okay, but anything over that,
And I'm gonna guess like those are particularly, let's say it's a 40-foot wide road versus a 25-foot road. That have two good times, that I'm guessing.
Yeah, that I don't know the particulars about, but I feel like if this is, a solution that we're leaning towards, we should just kind of dive into that.
So do cars generally go in between the spaces or?
No, but
most
they would
parks-
be crossing over, their lane to do that, so it would
Okay.
only be in an emergency situation where, the siren is on and then they traverse that cutout.
I see.
And any damage to the person inside or the vehicle itself. The raised crosswalk I thought was also very interesting, so it's basically a speed table with a flat top. So it would go over the crosswalk, so for example, at the school, if they wanted to, implement that, it seems like a very good solution, the crosswalk is already there, but it would just, slow things down. And, also, I think that the pavement markings are worth looking at as well, just to, we talked so much, with Public Works about signage and that maybe just having, I think maybe to Martha's point about like having something on the road, like an artwork that's, just kind of catch your attention, maybe something like this could be much, more effective in keeping with the historic character of the town.
Wrapping up really quick, before the next meeting, I'm gonna try to get some data. Would you like to continue looking at?
Sure.
And maybe you could work with Tony, reach out to Michael and find out. We got some positive information sometimes there, and I will share with you, and I have the name of the engineer from the city of New Haven that worked on designing what they are using. After about 6 calls, I got the right person, really helpful and willing to talk, so. And I'll share that information with you, and we'll see you all in March. Thank you.
Brandon, did you want to say something before we?
Oh, well, just that, I think it was the speed bump. So I live on a private road, so they just do whatever they want over there. We have some of those temporary speed bumps installed, not now, not during the winter months, through plowing. But if in the springtime, they go back, want to like see what they're like, by all means, go on the driveway.
Does it slow people down?
It slows me down.
Well, the beach screen is, White Sands has
Right, they have the
very
first.
strong bumps and Ed Dante, you want to fill my ear with how much you hate
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, Arthur drilled in removable from there.
The broken axle on one of the
Yeah.
plows was full of sand.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.